Good morning, Apostle Coates.
Good morning to you, Naja.
So, I want to thank you for taking the time out to join me on Get It Got It Good from our respective locations.
Yes, yes, I know this is amazing, these virtual meetings. I don't think I'm going to go away from virtual meetings once COVID has passed by. I think it's been saving me time. I don't have to fly all over town.
It is definitely a time saver. You could get more
Yeah,
in, but also you got to learn how to budget so you don't overwork. I've been
that's right.
overworking because of this.
Yeah, yeah, I found I've been working a little harder as well, but my gas tank has lasted much longer. So
Yeah, yes.
I'm not going
Very much
anywhere.
better on the
It
pocketbook.
is, it is.
Sharpens another Dance Solutions, Mission Dance Works, Nail
Wow.
Fetish. You guys, thank you, thank you, thank you, Merlin Prep Academy. Do not want to forget them. So, you guys, today I have the privilege of talking to, you're a doctor as well, right?
Yes.
Dr. Craig Coates. So, you have a lot of titles. What do you prefer people call you? Dr. Coates, Apostle Coates? Like, how does that work?
Honestly, I'm at this place in my life, they call me Craig, really works.
Really?
Yeah, amazingly enough, I think my church has set a new trend. I told them 2 summers ago, no titles. We're going to go first name only. And they're like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, well, I just haven't heard my name enough. I hear my titles for the past 30 years of my life. And just to hear your name is so refreshing. And it
It
establishes such a
is.
great ground for friendships and relationships, you know?
Exactly. I think, titles, you know what? I respect titles. I respect the
Yeah,
work that has been put into it. But,
right,
when you want to build relationships, it's usually first
right.
name basis because the
Absolutely.
title puts a barrier.
That's right. It does. It does. And I feel like if people follow you because you're titled, then you haven't influenced enough people, you know?
Yeah, most definitely.
And people ought to know who you are as a person.
And then you also say you haven't heard your name enough. There is so much power in a name.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
getting people's names right and understanding and
absolutely.
remembering names.
That is so true.
Even
So
though I
true.
give people a lot of leeway because my name is kind of difficult. Usually people have to talk to me for a while before they say Naja. Usually they say
Really?
Nasia or something. Yeah, yeah.
I get it. I get it. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you. So let me ask you, how did you get on this journey of becoming an apostle? Because I know a lot of times people don't wake up and say, hey, I want to be in the church or lead the church, or
Some
how does that
people
work?
do,
Yeah,
but
some
some
people do.
people do. No, but seriously, painfully, obviously, because it's a calling. It means that my life was shaped this way. So even in high school, I felt a pull to be different from the rest. And I mean not just be different, meaning do different things, but I felt like there was a higher calling on my life. I felt like God was speaking to me, and I couldn't get away from it. I had a design career straight out of high school, but I stayed local and designed clothing and went to school. And sure enough, I answered the call in 1987, 3 years after high school.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
young.
it's
That's
very young.
young.
Yeah, very young. But definitely, I believe that the calling is just to serve anyway. I never
Mhm.
looked for a title, and honestly, I probably never saw myself as an apostle or bishop or anything like that. I thought to answer the call as a minister was more than enough. That was nerve wracking enough. You know, um, Being in the Baptist church and all, they'd have a vote to determine if you really called or not. And so your sermon had to be right, all these things. And I was one of those kind of guys that was a behind the scenes guy. I could play the organ and things like that, but I didn't want no speaking part. I didn't want to be up front. And so that's kind of like God's sense of humor. That's where he put you. So
Yeah, where you're out of your comfort zone.
yeah, I was out of my comfort zone because I was so used to music being the thing to express what I feel, and fashion. But it got bigger than that. So I had to be a voice, and I started discovering my voice actually. As a minister, what was my voice? What was my platform?
Yeah. So, okay, I have all types of conversations with all types of people on a regular
Yeah.
basis, right? One of
Yes.
the conversations that I have quite often is one of the ones they say, don't talk about finances, which, I'm licensed, so I talk about finances all the time, and don't talk about religion, but that's what I do. So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
what is the order? A lot of the times people go bishop, pastor, apostle, minister.
Sure,
What is
sure.
the differences?
So in terms of progression or authority, I think that at this point people see apostle as the highest calling, and it depends on your denomination because the apostolic or the apostle is more so an apostolic assignment versus the bishop. But then people also kind of interchange the two. But now I hear people say archbishop beyond bishop, which means a bishop over bishops.
Mm-hmm.
And then bishops usually oversee pastors, and pastors usually oversee the church with the help of elders and deacons. And then, of course, ministers traditionally are the people who preach the gospel, go out and serve the needs of the congregation as well through the preaching of the gospel and sharing the good news, which in the apostolic, we call that evangelists
Mm-hmm.
or teachers, So it's kind of two streams, two ways to look at it. You can look at it from apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, and teacher, who are all equal, but they all serve together. But the apostle being the higher gift, or you could look at it as from the archbishop on down, which we see in the traditional Roman Catholic Church and Protestant churches as well.
Okay, so then you bring up another question.
Yeah.
There are so many different branches, Christianity and everything else, Judaism. So how does that, I mean, that could go on that could be a whole discussion, but just
we can wrap that conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Because it's actually what I'm teaching right now. I'm doing a very, very huge study from a book that I have coming out pretty soon. And the book talks about the movement, what the movement is now, which is Black Lives Matter. We talk about the message, about oppression, and then the ministry. But then I talk about the mission. And the mission is global, which is really about discovering our true identity, who we really are, So I've taken it all the way back to the roots, which is Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. And so I do an intensive study from my history background. I do a study on where these religions really originated, and that they were never meant to be so divided and so divisive. And that the mission now is to find common ground, for all of them to find common ground so we can heal people's lives and move on,
Because that's the ultimate goal, heal people's lives and live a better, healthier life.
Absolutely.
So it's fascinating. Recently, me and one of my girlfriends, who's one of my dearest friends, she's a white woman, and we were having this conversation, and she has a calling on her life. She goes to different countries and everything, and do evangelical work, or I guess that's how you say it.
Right, evangelical work. Yep. Evangelism. Yeah, you got it.
And so we were having this conversation with this Black Lives Matter, and talking about the roots and what is the true religion, and as African Americans, what is our true religion, considering that our history supposedly only started 400 plus years ago. But before then, we've had this whole tradition, this whole everything. So what is our true thing? Are we following a whitewash religion, or are we actually following what we originally came from?
Yeah, well, honestly, we're actually following a white oppressive Christianity still. And the reason why I said that is because I'm sharing knowledge now that people have never heard before and been in church all their life. And it's in their Bible. Okay, so I don't think the problem is the Bible, it's the interpretation, and because I would say 90% or more of the people who are the main characters in the Bible are people of color. Okay, the Bible is staged right there in Africa. When from the very beginning, it lays out for you, it diagrams where the Garden of Eden is, which is the Euphrates River. Now we know that is modern day the Nile River. This is all Africa, and I think through education, through wrongful teaching in the biblical sense, and through schools, we have not learned the truth. And it took me going to college to learn the truth. I think the only thing I knew about Black history was Martin Luther King before I went to college. And then I go to college and I discover all these amazing other people like Malcolm X, who we still never talk about, the people who were still necessary to the civil rights movement, right? We learned our history. I didn't even know, I couldn't name maybe one country in Africa prior to me going back to school. And then I learned about the whole continent of Africa, the diversity of this continent and the wealth of this continent, then the colonization of this continent, then the slave trade, and then the continued dominant and oppressiveness, apartheid, all of these things. And growing up, we didn't hear all of that. I think the first place I heard it, honestly, was the Cosby Show with A Different World, and how every week they had a theme that was really steeped in teaching us something about history. And that show came out right around the time of this South Africa and apartheid, So that inspired me to go to school and really want to be, it made me feel good about being Black, because there was nothing else good about being Black that was being demonstrated in America, and still is not being demonstrated. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah.
But so, yes, I believe that through the form of Christianity that many people have been brainwashed into, that we're not getting the whole truth and the whole story. And I believe education in the school systems has a lot to do with it too. But I do believe, sis, that one of the other issues is that there are no real qualifications to lead people as preachers in the Black church. A lot of Black churches do not have a qualification of going back to school. And if you do go to school, it's theology. And so who's teaching it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You might get the good stuff if you go to Howard University, but a lot of the mainstream theological institutes are not teaching the truth about who the original people are, because it doesn't mesh with the people who are running the program. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they don't want to ruffle feathers and
right. I mean, I
like
literally went into the Bible and pulled up Noah and his 3 boys, and I showed clearly that the people who are saying they're the Jews in Israel today are not the original Jews. Those people that left from under Hitler and all that and came back to Israel, they were not the original Jews, but they are descendants of the Gentiles, actually.
So I'm sure there's a lot of pushback, and it's unfortunate because a lot of the times people stop educating themselves after high school, which is a problem.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we know that education isn't telling us everything.
No.
Right?
Because when you get out of high school, you still don't know who you are, No. And so then you're kind of pushed to go into a school, take a couple years of general prerequisite courses, and then a major for 2 years. This is really, the whole system of education needs to change, because experience is just as critical to a good education as book knowledge.
Indeed.
Book knowledge don't prove that you can maintain, but the experience to me is so critical. So when I went back to school and majored in African American studies, I'm in my 30s by that time. But the experience I had as a Black pastor led me back to school with a real purpose and intention. And that was to understand the people that I'm supposed to lead out of the wilderness into a promised land.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think you have to have the balance. Just like when you go to be a practicing doctor, you got to know the book part, how the body works, but they also make you practice
Absolutely.
Practice all that, because that's very important.
That's right.
So, I mean, and then also your experience as going into the church and dealing with people. How important would you say knowing how to communicate with people and deal with people is to not only your profession, but to just life in general?
Well, I say this. We were created to be around people, which means that at some point in our life, we have to recognize that we don't exist by ourselves. I think the earlier we learn that, the better as children, learning to share, learning how to take ownership when you've done something wrong. I think that's very critical. And of course, this whole COVID pandemic is proving to us just how vital human contact is. This pandemic is spreading because we can't stop hugging and getting near people, because that's who we are, And so I think that it's essential that you know how to socially interact with people, how to express yourself, how to be a good listener, as well as communicating your thoughts and your ideas. And the other, not a competition. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to at least feel like our point and our voice matters.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
okay, what do I call you, Craig?
Please do. Okay. Please call me Craig.
So, yes. Okay, Craig, we have to take a brief break, but you guys stay with us. We'll be right back.
That's right.
You guys, thank you for still being with us. For you guys who are just joining us, we have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Apostle Craig Coates. Which order would somebody say that? Apostle, doctor?
They think all kinds of combinations of it. I believe the proper measure is when I'm doing church business, I'm the Apostle Coates. When I'm teaching, lecturing, and talking about the broad experience, I'm Dr. Coates.
Yeah. So speaking of that, you do a lot of things. You say you have a book coming out. Yes, do you have the title for that book already?
Yes, my third book is coming out September the 18th, and it's called The Post-Pandemic Mandate: 4 Initiatives that the Church Must Lead to Remain Relevant in a Post-COVID Society.
Awesome. And you said it's your third book. So the other 2 books.
Yes, I have a book out that is selling like amazingly on Amazon right now and sells out constantly, which I'm really happy. And it's called 5780, The Year of the Open Mouth. And so it's about the Jewish year we're living in, because I do follow the Jewish calendar.
Okay, and can you explain the Jewish calendar?
Sure. So first, the difference between a Jewish calendar and the calendar we have today is that the Jewish calendar, the months only have 30 days in them pretty much equally. There are 360 days in a Jewish year, not 365, okay? The other difference is that the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, meaning it is based on the evening to the morning, a lunar calendar, versus the solar calendar that we follow for the Gregorian calendar. So if you track accurately with the Jewish calendar, you can trace back all the way back almost to the origin of mankind. And so we are living in the 5,780th year since the fall in the garden. So now that doesn't account for all the time before Adam and Eve fell in the garden. It doesn't account for the first day, second day, third day that God created, because those days could have very well been millions of years. But, you know, Moses was recounting creation. This was the book of Moses' first book, Genesis. So he's recounting how things came to be. So, you know, figuratively, when we talk about things, we talk about it, well, yesterday and the day before, but technically these could have been millions of years, which science is starting to really prove the Bible to be accurate. But the Bible also needs science in order to remain accurate, because I think the two have been apart so long that they don't realize how much they really do work together.
Like a lot of things. So, okay, you said the calendar has 30 days regardless of the month. What about February? How does that work?
Okay, so here's the other thing. The calendar months don't start with the first of the month like we do, like February the 1st. In actuality, the zodiac signs are more accurate to the calendars in terms of, you know, your zodiac starts in the middle of a month to the next month. Yeah. So based on the full moon and the new moon determines the new month. And so the phases of the moon determines when you transition to your next month. The first full moon, the second like that. And that's how you determine Easter. I don't know if you realize sometimes when we look at Easter, we look at that differently from any other holiday. December 25th, they say it's Christmas. Thanksgiving is the fourth Thursday. But Easter is the first cycle or the first equinox or the first full moon of the spring season. And so that changes every year. Mm-hmm. And so the first day of the Jewish year is actually in September this year, September the 18th. It's Rosh Hashanah. And it's funny, we went to school with Jewish kids all our lives. We saw it all on our calendars and had no idea what it was. I came to understand that if I'm going to read the Bible and I see that we are the original Jewish people, then I need to really embrace my Jewishness. I have to embrace my ethnicity and understand why we celebrate what we celebrate. I'm like, why preach a book that you don't live fully, So I don't do Christmas in December, and because Christ was not born in December. But it doesn't take away from me spending time with my family and all of those who celebrate Christmas. They celebrate. I go to their houses and love with them because I know they would never understand. But I do celebrate the birth of Christ in September, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and that's one of those things where a lot of people were like, "Oh man," just like the thing with Halloween and
of course, yeah,
holiday and yeah.
And for me, it's not so much a ritual as it is a reality. Like I think it's amazing to learn the story of Jesus's birth and his life and all the prophecies about him. I just think it's amazing. And most people never touch that surface of Christianity. They're just trying to maintain every day, And so I through my book writings, I try to help Afro-centered Christians embrace their Jewish heritage and to know that it was us. It was us. We were the people that you talk about and you mentioned in the Bible. We were Joseph and Jacob and Abraham, all these people. That's us. That's who we were, So that's my mission right now, is to help people clearly see it in the scripture and who these people are and who we are today,
Well, I think that's awesome because a lot of times what we as a race and as a culture believe about ourselves is what is being perpetuated through the media,
Absolutely.
which is negativity. If
Absolutely.
you realize where you're from, kings, queens, great people, then you can have a higher standard of living for yourself and hold people accountable for how they treat you.
Yeah, I remember when we had a school, we had opened a school for 3 years and educated a lot of African-American students. They were falling through the public school cracks. And when I was teaching about the history of Africa and the history of the world, it was such a disconnect for them to believe that the Black pharaohs and kings and queens were their ancestors. Like, it was such a disconnect. Like when you asked them to describe Africa, every image they had were people running naked with grass skirts on, running through,
hungry, starving,
riding giraffes and like coming to America. That's what they were thinking, And so when I started showing them pictures of real urban cities and asking them where's this located, they were naming places anywhere but Africa. They could not see it.
That's sad.
Yeah. But we had a good outcome. They learned, And I think when people can learn where they come from, they can really appreciate where they need to go,
And you planted tons of seeds in that process.
Yes. And you see it years later. It's been 20 years and we're getting ready for a reunion. And I mean, these young men and women, the lives they're leading are amazing. But to hear them talk to me, like I'm an old person now, I was in my 30s when we started that school, but to hear them talk about, you gave me the foundation I needed. And, it's like, wow, this is good.
You never know the impact that you're making. A lot of times, 2 years later, a lot of times people get frustrated with what they're doing today because they can't see the outcomes. Okay, so we talked about book 3 and book 1. What about book 2?
So book 2 was 5780, the year of the open mouth. That's the one that came out last Jewish New Year. It's been out almost a year. And the whole concept behind that book is that every number has significance. So, like 7 is a number of perfection. But in the Hebrew, the number 80 is the description of it. The shape of it looks like a mouth that's open with a tooth in it. And the tooth is called the Dagesh, but it's the wisdom tooth. So this is actually a year, Jewish year, that we prophetically believe that this is the year to speak up with wisdom. And it has proven to be true.
It has been happening.
It's happening right now. And I remember when I wrote the book, I said, you'll know when it's time for wisdom to speak, because first fools will talk. Okay. And there's a lot of foolish talking going on. And people, instead of getting all angry over that, they have to realize that is an opportunity to show up and to speak wisdom. And people will know the difference. You know, when two people argue, nobody knows who the fool is, you know?
True that. Okay.
But book one was a Jewish book also. And I put that one out 4 years ago. And that one was called 5776, which was the Jewish year then, the year of the Lord's release, which means that biblically, every 7 years, people are supposed to be released from debt. They're supposed to release one another from emotional debt, from financial debt, you name it. They're supposed to give the land a rest. They're supposed to take a whole year to literally rest and reflect.
So like a sabbatical for a year.
Yeah, like we're getting right now with COVID, right? We're 5 months in and there's no end in sight.
I mean, and people can either go stir crazy with it, or they can use it as a time to reconnect with family.
That's right.
Stations,
yep.
Whatever they want to do.
Yes.
How do people find these books? You said they're on Amazon?
Yes. Well, Amazon now sells 5780. 5776 is sold out, but it can be always ordered on Amazon, and then it takes a little while to get it. But 5780 is readily available on Amazon, and it's downloadable on Kindle.
Oh, cool. How did you get into writing? Because you wanted to get the word out there? Like, how did that start?
Yeah, because I feel like that I needed a bigger platform than just preaching in the church on Sunday. You know, Dr. King was a preacher first, but he stepped out of the pulpit to a bigger platform to voice the very same things that he was preaching in his church.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that, you know, the Black church world is amazing. People have no idea what goes on in our church unless you go to one. You know, the amount of energy and the love and the passion and the tears and the joy and the anguish and all of that, you know, like The Color Purple when they had the Speak Lord scene. That's us, you know, but sometimes the world never steps into that space because the world doesn't care. That is what keeps us going. And so then when they accidentally come into our space, and when I mean accidentally, funerals like Whitney Houston, funerals like Michael Jackson, you know what I'm saying? When people who the world has claimed, when they're done with them, we bury them. We celebrate them as a community. I'll never forget it. After Michael Jackson's service, the news reporter said, now the family's going back to what's called a repast. And I was falling out laughing. I said, it's a repast. It's a repast. But I was thinking, you have no idea the broadness of our celebrations, even in death, you know. And so we have to have a bigger platform. And this is our time to have a bigger platform and to be proud of our Blackness and to be proud of, because you know what? If it wasn't for our Blackness, we wouldn't have made it, because that's all we had. The world always reminded us that we're Black. And we learned how to coexist and be Black and to be what the world needs at the same time. And so now it's our time to take that platform. And Dr. King, most people probably wouldn't even know, people who are not people of color wouldn't realize the power behind his speaking was the preacher in him. He could speak politically, but the preacher always had something to say. You know, I say the same thing about President Obama. You know, he was under Jeremiah Wright, and President Obama had that charisma too. You know, and we've seen it a lot lately when he preached gave a eulogy for those families that were murdered in Charleston, and when he gave the eulogy the other day for John Lewis, he almost had an amen key up moment.
Right.
You know, but because it's our time and it's our platform, we earned it. And that's why I write. I write books hoping that one day someone will read and say, can we have a conversation about this? And so they don't have to come to the church to find the person that got the revelation, that it's in the book. you know, and
Absolutely.
I've been given a lot of really good opportunities. I'm waiting for more doors to open because the book 5780, I put some prophecies in there that are all coming to pass verbatim, like word for word. And so people are like, oh my God, like that's really happening. Everything you're saying, even down to Kanye West, everything in the book. Because it's a revelation. God wrote it. I just typed it for him, you know.
Yeah, and I tell
So
people a lot of time, a lot of creatives, it just pours out. And people ask, well, how do you
absolutely,
do that? Because if it's meant for you to do, it'll just pour out. There's no struggle to
absolutely.
it. So wait a
Nah.
minute, we got to take a little brief break. But when I
Okay.
come back, I definitely want to talk about the business behind the business and
Okay.
those doors opening. Okay.
Sure. Yes.
All right, you guys. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Craig Coates.
BG Records presents Lionel and Leslie. It's Praise Him.
Some people call me crazy when I lift my hands to the Most High.
Nielsen Top 100 Gospel Singles Chart.
And I don't know why. I know the truth about Him. He saved my soul and He saved my life. This is why I praise Him. Yeah.
Nielsen #1 Gospel Internet Radio Chart.
Just because they don't know all the mess He's seen me through. See, He's an awesome God there when I need Him and there on time. This is why I praise Him.
#4 Billboard Most Added Indicator Chart.
For my mother, father, brother, sister too.
And He came and held my hand. He led the way. Oh my
Download your
God,
copy
and
today.
worthy of the praise.
It's Lionel and Leslie. Praise Him.
All right, you guys, welcome back. I'm glad you guys are still here. If you are just joining us, I have the pleasure of talking to Craig Coates, who's a doctor, apostle, historian, author. I mean, you name it. You do a lot of things. But in the ability to do all of these things, there's a business behind the church. There's a business behind the books. There's a business behind everything that you do. And a lot of
Absolutely.
times people go, you know, people in the church are not supposed to make money. We'll get into that.
Okay.
People in the church are not supposed to be this and that and this and that. But in order for the church to survive, you have to make the money. And actually, I believe that the money that you make is in direct proportion to the people that you help. It shows that you're actually getting the word out there, like with the book
Yes.
sales. So how do you handle that dichotomy?
Well, I would say that my ability to handle the book sales stems from the book management stems from my other business experiences. You know, being a clothing designer now in my 36th year, I have been broke doing it and I have done well with it. So I think the first thing is the passion. The passion drives you when there's no money. You know, when I first started pastoring 26 and a half years ago, I had passion and I had vision, but I didn't have money, you know, so we had to walk, we had to crawl, then walk, you know. And I hold on to that concept today. Even I do believe that everything happens in season and it's a process, and you're not going to skip steps and get anywhere. You know, you've got to learn it, and you've got to be able to prove that when you're broke, you still have vision, you still have ideas, you know. And so with the business, you know, I'm grateful that being the pastor of a church is what I was really called to, but not just a pastor, but an entrepreneur who's a pastor. So, so one of the goals for the church has been to make sure the church has assets, you know, that the church can have a building they can afford. So in times like this, when people are out of work, the building doesn't get snatched from you, you know, making sure that the church has a vision that serves the community beyond Sunday morning services. And we have been blessed over the 26 and a half years to have just that now. We have a 50,000 square foot facility, and we do more than have church. We're actually in the process of getting ready to open a shelter there, an actual living shelter called Home for Now. And so we're getting ready to build the partnerships. We've been managing grants now for at least over 10 years. And the grants that we manage are all directed toward health and wellness in the Black community. So we definitely deal with issues of diabetes and high blood pressure and hypertension. We deal with prostate cancer. We deal with all of the things that sometimes don't get preached over the pulpit. And every 3 months in our church, I have what is called Family Matters, where that Sunday I would get up and versus a sermon only, I would do a whole dissertation piece on a subject matter that's health related, you know, cigarette, tobacco, all of this. And then we go the next step of getting people to commit to make a change or to get help, you know, and we've had that partnership with the Anne Arundel County Health Department now over 10 years. We've built a partnership with other churches. Now I say all that to say that all of that builds assets as well. So to me, I don't view assets as just money. I view it as relationships too. And so as we build relationships with people, we're building our asset, our portfolio, you know, and so that what we need is right there. You know, if we need attorneys, it's right there. You know, if we need doctors, physicians, it's right there, you know, not to bypass the system, but just for general oversight, you know. And so likewise with the books, I was really the new guy to this. I didn't get a whole lot of people's opinions, because I really want opinions from people whose book has done well. You know, for people to say, well, you know, I published a book, but nobody's read it, then I don't really want your advice on. You may be able to tell me what not to do, you know, but you don't put
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
I get in trouble all of the time when people go, you don't listen to me. Why should I? Have you done what I wanted to do?
Reason. Right, right. Give me a reason. And because if you've done it, two things are present. Number one, you're not intimidated by me. And number two, you're willing and passionate about helping me because you enjoy getting there yourself, you know? And so I've reached out to a few people who have done excessively well with their book and their product. And I took their advice and I self-published because I'm an artist. I did all my book work. I had some people edit for me, and I went full scale with the Growth Matters Publishing, LLC. And I posted a website. And the key was professionalism, that it looks like it wasn't done at home. That was the key. Yes, I'm very picky. You know, and so
I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to get to that level, though. A lot of the times what we do is we cut corners, save money, but you have to bring your A game, especially when you're working for yourself.
That's right. Because you know what? Your product is who you are. That's your brand. That's who you are. You know, and I hear people talk about branding all the time, but branding doesn't go anywhere without a reputation. You know, I believe before you go into business, you should have already made some contacts through kindness, through life. And those are the people that you reach out to as a source when you're ready to launch, you know?
Absolutely.
And then from there, they reach people and they reach people, because people are going to talk about a product that has something in it that's worth talking about, you know?
And you grow up, like, and I don't mean that in one word, but you grow up to the different levels and you just get better and better. And a lot of times people don't want to do that networking and asking for that advice. But that's what you have to do. You have to surround yourself with people who have done it and who are better than you, and learn from those people. That's right.
That's right. Yes. And I, you know, I've done that in every phase. You know, years ago, we bought a piece of property that was deserted area. It was dark there, prostitution. We bought the property, and the vision I had was to open a barbershop and to give other young African Americans an opportunity to come in and see the joy of owning your own business. You know, a lot of these young guys were cutting hair in their grandmother's house in the kitchen. So we opened a store up and did that for 10 years. In fact, we opened on the day that Obama was inaugurated. That was such a memorable day. And 10 years later, we got an opportunity from a builder to sell, and I refused to sell. And he bought up everything around us, and we refused to sell. And they made us a partner. And so now our building has been demolished, and we are now a partner in a multi-million-dollar building with $1 million condos, and we own the merchant space. So
absolutely fabulous. See?
It's a process, though. It's
a process. And one of the things that people need to actually gather from this is the serial entrepreneurship that you're speaking about. How you've done the multiple things, and each level of entrepreneurship has built on the next level, which has prepared you for where you are now.
Some of the most successful people have had 20 failed ideas before they got the real good one. And the failed ideas taught them things that probably led them to the reward of the one, the niche, you know? Yeah.
So we've been speaking about, you know, the assets and the portfolios and the businesses and the things like that. And all of that comes back to the dealing with the people and the marketing and everything else, but it also comes back to profits. What would you say to the people in the church who has this thing that making a lot of money or becoming wealthy is negative, is a bad thing?
I say don't go into business because, you know, a millionaire told me, if you don't want to make money, don't go into business. He said, if someone asks you why you're in the business, you have to say you're in the business to make money. You're not in the business to say, oh, because I just like doing it. Then it's a hobby. That's not a business. You can quit any day and your bills are still getting paid because you have some other source of income. But I've always been taught, don't go into business not to make money. Go in to make money. And that will help you determine if your business idea is outdated even. Some people have waited so long to do something that the time is gone to do it. And they're still talking about, oh yeah, one of these days I'm going to open a little barbecue restaurant. And there's 7 restaurants that's open. The market is saturated. You're not going to do well because you didn't step out there when you had just a vision, you know? And so I believe you are in it to make money. Don't say, you know, some people say being a Christian, you know, oh, that's being too boastful. I'm not boasting, you know, pay my bills for me. And then I won't say it, you know what I mean? But I'm grateful that I can afford to go where we want, live where we want, have what we have, because it's a reward. The fruit of my hands are my reward. And so I intend to pass it down to my children. They come to my store all the time and they play with the pens. They're only 4 and 3, but they know for a fact that they're privileged, that they have something of an advantage because they have a daddy who owns a company. And at the end of the day, it's their company too. They'll never have to fill out an application and work anywhere else if they don't want to. Now, granted, if they want to, I think it's great. I'd send them to Chick-fil-A in a heartbeat, because going to Chick-fil-A, you don't just get a paycheck. You get great skills, you know? And so I would say part of the process, yes, to my daughter, go to Chick-fil-A. And as a result of working at Chick-fil-A, I'm going to buy you a car once you save this amount. And then, you know, because she may not be the one interested in the business. My son might be the one that's interested. But, you know, the point is that when you're making money, money opens doors too. It does.
Yeah, give you options.
Yes, it does. I know my children are going to college because we have money saved for them to go to college. We have already begun that process because we're already calculating what an education will probably cost us in about 14 years. And so we are already preparing for that. You know, but part of that is having money. If you don't have nothing to put away, you can't put nothing away, you know? And so I'm like, I could see if I work every day for some company and that's what I get paid. That's what your salary is. That's what you get paid. I got to manage that. But when I work for myself, the limit is what I make it. And my philosophy is there are 4 stages. 1, you work for a company, they pay you a paycheck. Okay. Second phase, you own a business, you do all the work, you pay yourself. Third phase, you own a business, you have employees who do the work and they pay you, and you pay them and you pay yourself. And then the 4th level, you own a business, you make money, and your money makes money for you.
Investor, yeah. So the 4th, what is it? Cash flow quadrant. That's how it works.
Hello. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Indeed. So speaking of that, and Robert Kiyosaki, and reading and educating yourself, what would you say to the person who then stops their education and wants to go far? Would you say it's a necessity in order to continually read, grow? A lot of people hate reading.
So I can say, when you say they stop their education,
they
right?
stop their, I guess, college, stuff like that.
So I'm going to be real controversial when I say you're crazy to go to college right now if you don't have a plan, because you're going to start off with debt.
Yeah.
So my thing is, if you're going to college, it's because college is there for one reason or another, to just enrich you or to enhance what you're about to do. You know, people have always told us, go to college, then become. I don't think it works like that. I think that the college experience is just that, a college experience. It is not always the prerequisite for success in the workplace. That's why so many people go to college with one major, but end up working in a field totally unrelated to their major. And so I believe that going to college is critical. It's a great discipline, but everyone doesn't do it. There are people who never went to college and made the most money and have great careers, but they go back and do school because now they're at a place where school fits for them. They have
There's a difference between that formal education and that life experience. Like when I was growing up, my mother always said college or the curb. I cannot consciously tell my kids college or the curb. I think they should go to college for the experience, learning how to live on their own, learning how to manage their time, things like that. Yes. But I also know, excuse me, I also know that a degree does not make you the money. Applied knowledge, but I think you need both of them.
Well, yeah, and some people might argue with us and says, oh, no, you don't get a good job if you don't have a master's degree. Okay, but so you got good money, but you're paying back a student loan. So how much have you really made?
And you're a slave to your job.
For how long? Exactly. And I think that kids can go local and get great education, and besides going abroad, but going abroad is a great experience. But we both know that going abroad means that you're much more responsible and being on your own. And we got kids who have never been on their own, and we're releasing them to go abroad where they're going to be with people who are 30 and 40 years old at parties. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying, I don't know if my children are prepared for that. I'm not in a hurry to kick my kids out. I think that's one of the problems with the African worldview versus the Latino worldview.
Latinos, yeah, they're generational.
The Asian worldview is that the kids get well and do well, and the parents never have to go to a senior home. The kids take care of the parents, but the parents house the kids until they're on their feet. This is what the Latino community does. We laugh and say, oh, they got 4 and 5 people up in the house. But then about 5 years later, every man got his own house, and so to me, I believe that we have to ask ourselves, why am I getting this education? Who can support me while I'm getting the education? I don't intend for my children to have to do both work and school if they're going to have a career. I mean, if they're going to do an educational piece that is a consuming of all their time. But at the same time, psychologically, we send young men to colleges just to play football, but they do have to learn to balance football and the education, right? But what do most people preach to them? You're going to get an NFL contract and blah, 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 blah. But instead, they should be saying, football has opened the door for free education. Get your education, young man. Get out of there and go. Fly with what you got. You may never hit the field, but you have won if you got a free education because of so your football skills got you the best thing in education, because you get out on that field for the millions of dollars and your brain's knocked out, and by the time you're 45, you're having Parkinson's kick in and all these other things because of the damage. Then you realize the money wasn't worth it. So to me,
because your life is gone.
Right. To me, the sports should be to open the door for the free education or subsidized education.
So it's all about changing your perspective. And by the way, I'm going to soundbite that part about kicking the kids out early, because I had some grown kids home and my husband's like, these kids got to do it. But I think there's a balance about making them make sure they're being productive and responsible and doing the right things.
And for the family to have a plan. That's, my wife and I do a lot of planning. And so we already know, we have a house right now. We just bought a house that I grew up in, the house I grew up in as a little kid. And now we're raising our kids there. But we had the whole house totally remodeled, totally different. But we immediately started talking about that the kids can have the house. They don't have to worry about where am I going to live. It's their home. When we get older, we just would love it that you guys take care of us. And, if we can't be taken care of, hopefully bring in someone to help take care of us or whatever, but it's your home. It's your house. Yeah. My children are just 3 and 4, but they already have a home. Most people don't think like that. Most people thinking like, when you get older, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. No, you got to pass down some transfer generational wealth. And so my children are homeowners, because if I own it, they own it.
Exactly. And I think it's a mindset thing, and a lot of people don't think like that. And we have multiple kids, so my thing is to have the family home. And my husband always said, we don't need all of this property. We don't need all. I'm like, do you realize how many kids we have? Number one. Number
and the value of property.
the value of property, and then to have multiple real estate. So even if they all don't get a home, the value as a whole will be enough to care for the family. And it's about teaching them how to manage their money and their finances. Absolutely. And continue to grow that foundation that you need to them.
Because when you teach people that, then they're not scrambling over one check.
Yeah, and they're not fighting and bickering if they feel empowered.
One check, because they have learned to coexist and cooperative economics. They've learned to pool resources. That's also important.
Absolutely. So it has definitely been fascinating speaking with you. Finally, it's been a while coming.
I know. I'm so grateful that you reached out to me. I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, I got tired of only seeing you at funerals.
I know, right? I got a big one this week. It's always, you know. But I'm going to say this is weird. I'm grateful, though, for that opportunity, because it seems to be the biggest opportunity when people's hearts are open and fragile and broken to receive some new information, some new inspiration, some new hope. And I can honestly say, I think the majority of the people that have joined our ministry are people I've probably met at funerals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And I can see how that works, because people are hurting, so their ears are open and their hearts are open, and you plant seeds during those times.
Need hope. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. So, okay. Craig, how do people find you, follow you, support you, come to church?
Absolutely. So we are virtual, of course, as a church. We are moving toward starting our own broadcast network. That's in the making. Always check us out on Fresh Start Church on Facebook, and on my page on Facebook, any of my pages, Craig Coates, Bishop Craig Coates. I'm on there, Modern Priestwear. And you can check us out. And I'm live every Sunday and every Thursday on those social networks. And of course, you can always reach out to me. Modernpriestwear.com is my company, and amongst other companies. So Growth Matters Publishing. I do a lot of assessments for churches, etc., for businesses. I facilitate workshops. So I'm findable there. That I make it easy to find me. You put in Google Bishop Craig Coates, I should pop right up, and you'll know it's me. I got this big Maxwell hairdo back in the day, so you got to be different.
Yeah, stand out.
That's
okay,
right.
You guys, and of course, you can always follow me at Get It Got It Good G3 across all social media platforms, or at Naja NYSIA Carter, or Will Height, WILHITE, across all social platforms. You guys, I appreciate you joining me today. Craig, I definitely appreciate you joining me today. And you all have a great week. I appreciate you all. Until next time.
God bless.
All right, I thank you for being here with me today.
You.
Research suggests that close to 50% of all small businesses go out of business in their first 2 years. Don't let that be you. Join That's My Network LLC today. Here at That's My Network, we strive to help businesses build their brand by offering connections to multiple marketing streams, including promotion across a social media platform that has a growing following of 50,000 nationwide. Let us help build and develop your brand to reach its full potential. For more information, email that'smynetwork@gmail.com. That's My Network, a network that works for you.
So let's talk about fruit, Bishop.
All right. The fruit of the Spirit is evidence. It's evidence that you actually have the Holy Spirit. You know, people always say that they have the Holy Spirit and they're full of God, but yet they produce nothing. It's like Jesus when he walked by the fig tree and he was hungry. And from a distance, it looked fruitful. And you know, anytime it deceived him, then we can't say we don't deceive others. We deceive people the same way. Because from a distance, we look really productive. But get close on us, get in relationship with us, get to talking with us, and you sometimes see some bitter stuff. Lemons look great on the outside, but everybody knows the lemon is sour. You produce fruit by first admitting that you can't produce it without God. That's the first step. A lot of people think that what they do it of their own choosing, of their own power. To me, it translates as arrogance. But when you really rely on God and say, God, I cannot love unless you teach me how to love. Love is one of the fruits of the Spirit. We say it every day. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But do we really understand what it requires? In order to love a person, you have got to go through some stuff with that person. That's how you know you love them. I love you because I could have left. I love you because I could have said this. I love you because I could have gave up. But that's love when you suffer long. That's love when you're not puffed up. That's love when your interest is not self-interest. You don't get to choose what fruit God's going to work on. God chooses what fruit he wants to work on in your life. And so if you find yourself going through a period of, I can't deal anymore with people, I can't take it, I'm on a short fuse, you know what? That's the very time God says, aha, I'm working on you to teach you long suffering.